publication for all items. With that, open up for a call of attendance.
Mrs. Volo,
Here.
Mr. Hausen,
Here.
Mr. Short,
Here.
Mr. Santola,
Here.
Mr. Wagner,
Here.
Mr. Taylor,
Here.
Mr. Artuso.
Here.
If I can get everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, start with the first item,
Did you want me to read it in
if you would.
again?
Please.
All right. 671 Willow Lane accessory structure located at 671 Willow Lane. Applicant Brian Bishoping is requesting area variances to allow side setback less than what is required and to allow the placement of an accessory structure to be nearer to the front of property line than the rear line of the main residence associated with the construction of a 500 square foot detached wood frame structure on a .46 acre parcel having SBL number 065.13-2-11, located in an R3 single-family residential district under sections 350-12 and 350-36 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
How you doing, Brian?
Hello, how are you tonight?
Good. Want to present the changes that you have made to the board?
Actually, just going back to last meeting, the last thing we were talking about is a rendering of what things were gonna look like. So the packet that I submitted, we could jump right to page 33, I believe. And that I think is what, yep.
Is there any way to get that up on these screens?
What, it is on the screen, I don't know, what happened?
Yeah, on the, that's not showing up on these screens, is that
Oh, wait a second. It
possible?
should, right? Maybe it's not on.
Was it on earlier?
No.
Yeah,
It's on that TV screen.
can't see that TV screen.
You got a mirror?
I'll tell
There you go.
We'll rotate the building.
Okay, I mean, I see the image that we're looking at least. So for the board, because my pages don't have page numbers.
It is in the middle of the,
Yeah, it's this image here. All right.
Yeah, so if you're thumbing through it, there is the June 11th presentation. If you go through all of those images, then it goes to the rendering. And once again, I'm Adam Cummings, helping out my friend Brian on this application. While you're looking, I did look at the old minutes, so I apologize in the past when I didn't introduce myself, so. Find it?
Yep, I mean, I'm good. Does everybody have a copy of it?
I was gonna try and find Mr. Artuso some time to
Gotta find it,
the-
okay.
to find the button.
No, it
No,
should
the
be
screens
working.
aren't working. I don't know what's.
There it is.
So the one on the bottom is, it shows the porch addition that was discussed at the last meeting, as well as the accessory structure. We don't have quite the skill set to overlay them with Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever is used to get it on there, so it's just a cutout, but tried to show it in both of them. And that's the softening up of it with the siding matching the two. The color right now is a light gray, because he can't or doesn't want to match the 1962 green color. So there is a plan, if there is a budget sometime in the future, to eventually change it, but this is a neutral enough color and it's not too contrasting to the neighborhood to put that one in there. So they kind of blend together. But once again, the rendering down below does not show all the windows. didn't get into that level of detail, but that's why both images were given to show that. So on the bottom, he's not looking to propose to take any windows out. Oh, now you lost all of it. So if you're looking at the paper copies, just to clarify that bottom one, other than the porch addition, he's not looking to make any changes to the main structure of the house at this juncture. That's just a rendering that didn't take, the level of detail to do that needs a licensed architect to do that type of detail.
So out of curiosity, and I was not at the October meeting, I did have the opportunity to listen through the meeting itself. But I was at the meeting prior, I believe it was the September meeting, when we talked about it, and we talked about softening this up. We had talked about trying to get this to fit within a residential neighborhood. And I'm looking at elevations that were received back in July, and I'm looking at the rendering, and I can't see a difference between what was submitted in July and the rendering.
So the main change was the siding originally was the vertical that you'd see in more of a commercial building.
Okay.
It's still metal siding, but this one's horizontal to match it. It's still instead of a 4-inch siding like you'd see on a residential, so, his has got the 9-inch. So yeah, these were materials that weren't allowed to be added at the meeting because we were gonna bring them at the same day. But we are looking to do the wider horizontal orientation of the metal siding. Light fixtures just didn't make it on the rendering, but there would be light fixtures above the doors, but they didn't make it onto that one.
Okay.
You're still maintaining the 20-foot
Yes.
interior height?
Well, it's the roof height, so he's maximized his footprint with height and the square footage of what the town code allows. Yep.
Now, is the 20-foot to the outside, to the top of the peak?
No,
It's
it's
not
actually to the
taller than?
midpoint of so the roof line, the way the town code reads is to the midpoint of that gabled roof.
Then
So
how-
it's not the peak.
How tall physically is the actual tallest point of the building?
I believe it's 21 feet 4 inches.
Yes, 21 foot 4.
So an original rendering had it at 23 feet 8, but it was recalculated, it's gonna be 21 feet 4 inches. But once again, that's due to the meeting the town code height of 20 feet measured to the midpoint of that sloping ridge. And this one, the rendering is drawn to scale with the perspective view of what it would look like to each other, to the two buildings.
There's no perspective in our packet.
Well, this perspective of what you're looking at here.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't have a perspective view from an airplane coming at it. This is from.
That's an aerial, I'm just talking about a perspective.
Yeah, no, so the perspective is from the road. We don't have an aerial or an ortho image
I
perspective.
understand.
Okay.
Other questions from the board?
I just got a couple comments. Seems to me, we've been going over this now for 4 or
Months.
5 months, whatever it is. And the board's been requesting different things every time. Renderings, samples, suggested height difference, exterior appearance, things like that. And we haven't always gotten what we've been asking for or suggested. Is there some reason for kind of sidestepping some of our requests, or?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any sidestepping, but I am following town code, kind of what I presented for the, I think it's 43 pages, is I'm following the way the town wants me to do things. I didn't have to get elevation drawings yet, but I did go out and do that on my own, just to get ready, and then I did hand them over, and it's not stuff that's required at this point for something that's less than $20,000 to construct.
But to your
So-
point, if it was the code, you wouldn't be here. You'd have your building permit, it'd be up. So you haven't provided everything that we've asked, because you're the one asking for relief. So we're trying to do our best job in weighing whether that request merits that relief. So it's not like you've done everything that the code asks you to. You're asking for relief from some of the code requirements. So
But-
that's why we've
I'm
asked for
asking
extra
for
information.
relief from location.
Yeah, it's actually two variances. I would like to fine tune that one back in. I appreciate
We-
and recognize that the town is trying to impose architectural standards that don't exist, opinions of what you'd like it to look like, but I would like to point out that this is the zoning board of appeals trying to find the minimum variance required, not necessarily a denial or an acceptance or an approval, but you hear about its proximity to the back line of the house and the side lot line. I understand you're trying to look at it in terms of the seeker evaluation and the area variance part of community character, but once again, it's on the variance and the town code allows it. So I disagree that it's been sidestepping. For an application that at the first meeting was pointed out, he's trying to see if he can get the variance approval to actually do the project without investing too much time and effort.
Adam, I appreciate that.
Yep.
You know, and I don't think I don't think it's lost on this board that the variance is for the location. But this board does have the opportunity to take into consideration the impact on the neighborhood itself. Which is why the board has been asking for softening of the structure to help it fit into a residential neighborhood over the course of the multiple meetings that we've had. And so with that, if there's any other comments from the board at this point, if not, I'm going to open it up to public, if there's any public comments. All right, with that, I open it up to the public for public comments. Please note that there is a 5-minute limit on individual comments. With that, come on up, please state your name and address.
My name is Jan Armentrout. I live directly across the street at 670 Willow Lane and have attended every one of these meetings but one. I am dismayed that this information that's being shown right now was not available on the website as late as today, so there was no chance for me to make comment. I am the person, as I said, who will be most affected. I have discussed with Mr. Artuso and several other people that there are certainly things that could, as the person walking out of her front door every day, make this a possibility of a project. Certainly the height and the fact that it looks, no matter, you call a spade, and that looks like an extra garage to me. And there's already commercial equipment around the property on a very routine basis. I had specifically suggested that the building be rotated so that the garage door entrance would open to the driveway. I see even that sort of a moderate change that could make a project workable. There's no room for any sort of compromise in this. If we drive the neighborhood, and I believe all of you have maybe multiple times, appreciate the amount of work that you have put into this. That's a commercial-looking building in a very residential neighborhood. These houses are now like $300,000 houses. They're like the smaller family room, bath and a half, 2.5 bath bedrooms. Lovely neighborhood, mostly built in the 60s and very early 70s, and we want to preserve it. My fears, amongst other things with this sort of thing, is that if a person operating a business out of the home in one instance gets an approval for this building, every other tradesman in the neighborhood is going to have a request before you And before you know it, the neighborhood looks like older parts of the village of Webster. I have made my concerns repeatedly to you guys. I don't see softening there. Like I said, I don't see the building rotated. I see a garage, a big garage, a tall garage. And I would ask that some other consideration be given. If it's such an ideal building for the neighborhood, put it out on the other side of the house, plenty of room there. And then I'm not looking at the commercial equipment plus the garage that is routinely stored on that side of the property. And again, I thank you for the amount of work and time that you folks have given all this.
Thank you. Is there anybody else to speak for or against the project? Or any comments from the public? All right. With that, bring it back to the board. Any final comments or questions that the board may have? And I'm going to recommend that we move forward with a decision at today's meeting. We've gone through this process multiple times, multiple iterations. I'm recommending that we move forward with a decision unless anybody here disagrees.
No, I agree with that.
Okay.
I guess I still have a concern with the height. Because the building is not located where the code indicates that the building should be located, I drove that entire neighborhood from Holt Road to 250 throughout the past weeks and did not see another, other than a barn on 250, did not see another it's in essence a two-story building without a middle floor, a two-story accessory structure in any of that building development. And to me, that's the harshest part of it, is because it's much closer to the road than it typically would be based on what the accessory structure code states. Is there any way to soften the look of it by reducing the height by 5 feet or 7 feet, or it just, I know you want to put shelves in, I know, but it's still much more storage space than what you have right now, and it would make it just less big gray wall.
So can I pose, well, first I want to
Can
point
you
one thing
come
that
up to
keeps
the
being.
microphone, please, so we can capture?
Yeah,
your
sorry
comment?
about that.
Thank you.
One thing that keeps being brought up, and I'll add to Brian's part, I've known Brian for 24 years now, since we went to college together, and he has been a licensed electrician that whole time. He does not wholly run his business out of there, but ever since we were teenagers, he does, as an electrician business, act as an electrician there. He does not operate his business out of it. There are times, he doesn't even have a truck that has the business name on it. There are a lot of other ones that go in. So I just wanted to point that out, that he's not going to operate a commercial business out of this. The other part, in terms of what Board Member Volo just asked about, is to point out, with the way the code is, it's not drawn on here, but if it was placed in the backyard where it could be to be code compliant, it just shifts it back to 10 or 12 feet back and 7 feet over. So the height of it by the code that's allowed would only diminish it by about 1.5 feet in terms of the view that you're seeing there. Because he does have room in the back, well, it's not a back corner because he's a corner lot, so he's got 2 side yards. So he does have room back there, but it's because of the electric service is why he's electing to put it here. So in terms of the height, while I do appreciate the points you're making on that, the code does allow it to be in that converging of the 2 side lots. And in terms of a height impact, while no other buildings have it, it is possible to put it in there and still receive a building permit. But to the point of Brian answering the question of your request to minimize it, which once again is not a variance request of the height because he is meeting the code, I'll ask him if he'd entertain it.
I mean, I am looking to maximize my storage. So things started off one way, and then when I found out that the way I wanted to do it was an accessory structure. I looked at those, the town code for an accessory structure, and this is what I've come up with. Location is, makes sense on the property, and I think with the metal siding flipped horizontal and the existing metal siding that's on the primary structure is 8 inches, and the new metal siding is gonna be 9 inches. So I think with I believe it's about 32 feet from the existing garage to the nearest side of the accessory structure. You're never gonna notice that difference in 1 inch for the metal siding. So I think it's gonna blend right in with the existing structure, and you know, the south wall of the existing structure that faces Mill Creek Run it has 2 windows. Other than that, it's 22.5 feet of metal siding.
Okay. So I'd like to just note that this is a type 2. No further review is necessary under seeker pursuant section 617.5 of the environmental code. With that, I guess looking for a motion, I guess, or a motion on the.
You looking for a second on the,
Yeah,
figure?
yeah,
I'll
thank you.
second that.
Thank you, Don.
Okay, Mr. Short,
Aye.
Mr. Hauser,
Aye.
Mrs. Volo,
Aye.
Mr. Centola,
Aye.
Mr. Leggy.
So, now a motion for the variance.
Let me ask the applicant one thing. The neighbor across the street asked that the garage door be located towards the existing garage. Would you be willing to do that?
With the reason the structure is 20 by 25 is so that my boat will fit in.
Okay.
If the garage door is on the other side, I don't have enough room to swing the boat.
I just needed a
It's not possible.
clarification on that. Thank you.
That's it.
No, no. Public session is done, over at this point. So need a, guess we want to go through the findings, and need to do a motion for the variance. I guess, I don't know, Corinne, I don't know if you want to read it in, or for 671 Willow Lane, accessory structure located at 671. This is for an area variance to allow a side setback less than what is required, and to allow the placement of the accessory structure to be nearer to the front property line than the rear line of the main residence associated with construction of a 500 square foot detached wood-framed structure on a 0.46 acre parcel having SBL number 065.13-2-11 located in an R3 single-family residential district under sections 350-12, 350-36 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Did we determine what those setbacks were?
I believe we have. Gonna have to go back through,
That was 44.
No, I found the motion. It was approved at 5 feet from the north lot line and 43.4 feet from the front or east lot line.
yep. Does anybody want to do the findings?
Did we have a second?
Huh?
Did we have a second? Or did you not make a motion?
We haven't done I haven't made a motion.
Oh,
We haven't done
okay.
the findings yet
I'm sorry.
to do that. No? All right. So, the findings that we have to go through, kind of standard. Is this request out of character in the neighborhood? Based on all the conversations that I have heard from this board over multiple meetings, this request is out of character for this neighborhood. There will not be a detriment created to nearby properties. Again, from hearing from this board, there's potential visual impacts to nearby neighbor properties. Benefit is not achievable by any other method. It is not, the applicant is attempting to get all his materials and equipment stored inside to meet requirements of the town code. One way of doing that, one of the only ways of doing that is to provide a structure to be able to put his equipment and materials inside and build a structure. This request is not substantial. This request does meet the town code from a size standpoint, but not from a location standpoint. There is no adverse physical or environmental impacts to the site or the neighborhood. I would agree with that, other than the first two items previously identified, out of character of the neighborhood and detriment created to nearby properties. The difficulty was not self-created, and it's not, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the applicant has equipment he's been able to acquire over time. It needs to be able to store that, not a self-created element, and this is not a desirable change.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I
Yeah.
believe you do mean that this is a self-created difficulty.
Thank you. Yes.
Further, if you could, I think it'd be helpful to include some of the facts of the particular project that you find that result in an undesirable change. The board has noted the height of the structure, the materials that are used, having an industrial look. I would suggest that you would incorporate some of those specific facts into the findings.
Okay, thank you. Going back to the character in the neighborhood is a typical residential neighborhood. Typical siding throughout the neighborhood, dormers, maximum height of structures are typically a two-story structures. The structure that was presented before this board is a metal-sided pole barn structure, low slope roof, no dormers, very flat front face, very industrial looking. These were the materials that were presented to this board over the course of the last 6 months, with very little modifications made to accommodate any adjustments. I think that about covers it.
One more thing, Mr. Chair, if I understood the board correctly, the request is substantial in so much as it's the combination of the size and the materials used, coupled with the reducing the setback from the front road. Would that be accurate?
That would be accurate,
Okay.
yes. So I guess with that, make a motion, for a variance, for area variances at 671 Willow Lane, accessory structure, with a was a side setback of 5 feet and a front setback of, was it 43 feet, Corinne? Is that right?
43.4.
43.4 feet. Do I have a second?
Is your motion to approve or deny the application for the area variance, Mr. Chair?
To deny.
Second.
Mr. Short,
I agree.
Mr. Santola,
I agree to deny it.
Yeah, the motion is to deny, so the response from the board would be aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
okay. Mrs. Rolo,
Aye.
Mr. Hausen,
Aye.
Mr. Leidman.
Aye.
Ryan, unfortunately, you have the response from the board. Your application for area variance has been denied for the structure. I believe it's a 6-month period before you can come back before the board. Is that correct, Josh?
1 year.
1 year, unless there's substantial changes? Is that correct?
Correct.
I'd like to correct that. I believe he can't come back ever unless there is a substantial change to the application, to the zoning board of appeals.
That
The
is
reference in our
incorrect.
code is one
It's
year.
1 year. It's 1 year in our code.
Okay,
Unless there's some meaningful change that would
right,
indicate it
Yep.
would be a fresh
Understood.
application.
okay. Well, thank you, the board,
Thank
for all
you.
your consideration on this. Obviously disappointed with the decision, but thank you for all the time and effort.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
One more piece of evidence was a letter from the, I believe it was planning board, was provided to us saying that this is the master plan.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Can that be included, please, with the findings?
Yeah, that's right. What was the date? That was October 4th letter.
I missed that letter.
Yes.
Okay. All right, our next application, Waterview Apartments, Phase 3.
All right. Waterview Apartments Phase 3, located in the northwest corner of Willow Point Way and Nautical Mile Drive. Applicant Legacy Development Company Incorporated is requesting area variances to allow front setbacks less than what is required and a district buffer area less than what is required, associated with the construction of 6 buildings plus a community center, total of 56 units, each 2 stories in height on a proposed 13.15 acre parcel having SBL number 093.06-3-64.11, located in an MHR medium-high residential district under section 350-14 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
How's it going?
Good evening. I'm Chris Nadler, General Counsel for Mark IV Enterprises. With us here tonight, we have David Cox from Passero, our design engineer, and Chris DeMarzo, the president of Mark IV Enterprises and owner of Legacy Development, the owner of the property at issue here. As you know, we've gone through several design iterations on this project over the years. In the 1980s, this parcel was approved for a 7-story, 158-unit apartment building, along with the approval of Phase 1, which consists of 35 townhouses, and Phase 2, which consists of 62 townhouses. Earlier this year, we proposed to the town 2 3-story apartment buildings containing 90 total units. We participated in sketch plan review with the planning board, and we came before the zoning board and heard feedback from both boards, as well as feedback from our neighbors and other members of the public. We took that feedback to heart, as you can see, and redesign the project completely. As you can see, it's significant reductions in size, scope, and number of units. But more importantly, we are presenting townhouse-style apartments, so it's more in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. What we're proposing now is 56 townhouse-style apartments, each with their own garage, separate entrances, driveway, a clubhouse, a dog park, and sport court for use of the community. This is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, what's already there. One thing we are proposing as well, does this one show it? And I wanted, this is a recent change to the plans. There will be one single entrance onto McEwen instead of 6 separate driveways. The building will remain in the same location, but the driveways will converge into one single entrance. There will be an extensive landscape buffer between the driveways and McEwen Road to shield our neighbors and the road. Additionally, we'll be adding 4 parking spots in front of the clubhouse. Some of the challenges we faced in putting together this plan was that there are 3 road frontages surrounding the property, and there's utility easements along the eastern portion of the property, coming from McEwen over to the existing townhouses. We did manage what I think is a really great plan that's in keeping with the neighborhood, that those revisions eliminated 2 of our variance requests. And now we're left with front setback variances that we're seeking. The largest front setback variance would be 18.7 feet, where a 75-foot front setback is required. That's on Maritime Drive, this building here, along Maritime Drive. It's important to remember that from the building to the property line is 18.7 feet. That's an 18.7 foot setback from the property line. But from the property line to the road, there's another 17.5 feet. So the total distance from the building to the road is 36.2 feet. Most of the buildings in Phase 1 and Phase 2 have between 30 and 40 foot driveways, setbacks from the building to the road. Some of the townhouses in Phases 1 and 2 have as little as 27 feet from the townhouse to the road. So what we're proposing is definitely in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. If we didn't have these, if the board didn't grant the variance, we'd have 100-foot long driveways, 70 feet back from the property line and then another 25 feet to the road. That would be substantially more pavement and substantially less green space. Josh, can you put the overhead, the aerial with the arrows on it? That one. As you can see from this map, we're also requesting district buffer setback from an MHR multifamily residential zoning district to a residential zoning district. It's a 38.5 foot setback where a 100-foot district setback buffer is required. Similarly to the driveway setbacks, we have an additional 22 feet between the border between the 2 zoning districts, which is the property boundary, and McEwen Drive, which is 22 feet away. So our buildings to McEwen is 58.5 feet. The single-family homes on McEwen are across the street, facing the front of the townhouse building. The distance from our building to the McEwen houses is at least 152 feet away. There's 152 feet between the proposed building and the existing homes on McEwen. Again, there will be a landscape buffer between the homes and the proposed building. The distance between the existing townhouses in Phase 1 and Phase 2 and houses along McEwen is as little as 66 feet between buildings. We're proposing 152 feet between buildings, and what's already there in the neighborhood is 66 feet. So it's definitely in keeping with the neighborhood. We met with the planning board for another sketch plan review to go over the proposed plan last week, and they received it favorably. I understand at least some of them have indicated that to you in correspondence, and we're looking forward to coming back with them next month for site plan approval. We went back and designed something that's in keeping with the neighborhood, and I think that the variance requests are absolutely reasonable. David and I are here to answer any questions the board might have.
Well, I want to say thank you for heeding our comments and making adjustments accordingly. I'm struggling seeing that graphic, and that graphic is, we don't have that graphic, and our screens are not working. So if you have copies, I would greatly appreciate that. As part of your,
On a 5-member board.
Thank you.
You may have to share.
Well, there's only 5 of us, so.
thank you, appreciate it. Oh,
Do
thanks.
you have enough?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. You indicated significant plantings of vegetation along McEwen Drive.
Yes, sir.
If I'm reading this plan correctly, those plantings are happening outside of your property line? Am I reading this correctly?
Yes, that's correct. We'll work with the town to allow that in the right of way.
What kind of vegetation would you be anticipating?
Yeah, mostly street trees.
Mostly street trees is the answer.
So you believe that 10 street trees is an adequate landscape buffer?
I think, given the distances here, given the fact that these are townhouse-style apartment buildings that have individual garages, individual entrances, that's how streets are created, is, 2 residential structures facing each other. Here, we actually have a lot more distance between the houses on McEwen and the one building that faces McEwen. So,
But your idea
yes,
of a
absolutely.
substantial landscape buffer is 10 trees then, right?
And there's foundation plantings as well.
Well, that's not in the buffer. I'm just trying to make sure that I understand what you're presenting.
I am not familiar with what a street tree is, so if you can explain that to me, I apologize.
Yeah, give me 1 second to find the landscape table. So, sweet sunset maple trees, honey locust, black gum, and then we have Robin Hill serviceberry, Raising Sun redbud, fringe tree, rail star.
So all trees that are gonna lose their leaves in the wintertime, it sounds like, if I'm not.
And actually, they're all deciduous material, and the vast majority of them are actually large shrubs, not really. They legally be called trees, but they're more shrub-like in size and appearance.
Okay. What is the overall general height, the max height that this vegetation grows?
Yeah, so the obviously the maple 35 to 40 feet tall, the honey locust 30 to 50 feet, the black gum is 30 to 50 feet, and then the serviceberry is 20 to 25. The redbud is 8 to 12, the fringe tree is 18 to 20, and the star magnolia is 10 to 15, and the agricort lilac is 8 to 10.
Gotcha. Thank you, appreciate that. Other comments from the board? Questions?
So just to make sure I understand, with the revised driveway of the building that is closest to McEwen, or the one that faces McEwen, that 38-point distance remains the same? There is no change other than I'm just consolidating the driveways?
That's correct.
Okay.
Is there any other comments from the board at this point?
The required buffer is 100 feet,
Correct.
That's correct. And the proposed setbacks to the buildings to McEwen,
8, is it 38 feet? Is that, am I reading that correctly?
Yeah.
38 feet?
41.8, I believe.
41.8 is what you're seeing?
No, there's a 38 point, on McEwen, there's a 38.5 and then a 41.
The building facing McEwen will be 41.
It is 41. The one to the left on the screen is 38.5.
I gotcha. So the side of the building to the left
Correct.
is gonna be at 38 feet, 38.5 feet?
Yes.
I gotcha.
That building, by the way, faces the pump house.
Yep.
Can't see it on this map, but
Yep.
that's directly across from the pump house.
Understood. Okay.
All right, just so I understand, a buffer between districts, does that have to be green space
yes.
without anything in it, or am I treating it like a setback? Because I had
Buffers-
assumed
buffers
buffer was green
over to the
space.
sky.
Okay,
That's correct.
so really, we don't have,
So that it does not include ingress and egress though.
buffer does not include ingress and
It
egress?
allows ingress.
It allows ingress and egress.
Okay, all right,
But the road cannot run parallel with the buffer. If you run through it perpendicular, but not parallel.
So the unit that is facing McEwen, you have a road that is running parallel to the buffer,
That's correct.
right? So the buffer would start at the edge of the
The driveway.
The drive.
Once it starts to run parallel.
so with the previous plan where the driveways ran individually to McEwen, that was permitted, but having a single ingress egress on McEwen now changes the dimension technically to the buffer?
That's correct.
Well-
It's a balancing act.
Okay. I just want,
Don, just for clarification, why would that change that? Because it's still egress and ingress.
It does, but it occupies more space of the buffer, so it eliminates any type of screening that, potential screening that may be, needed.
Well, I just want to make the board aware that this particular change of consolidating the driveways was made at the planning board's request, as well as the highway superintendent who wants to limit the number of curb cuts to the public road.
yes.
Thank you.
Like I say, it's a balancing act.
Yep.
No, I think it works much better than the August submission,
It,
than the two big block buildings. This is far and above a much easier and more palatable design, I think, and I think it'll work, not only does it work better, I think it, when you're going down the street, it'll look nicer and more in character with the surrounding neighborhood.
With that, I'm gonna open it up to public comment unless anybody else has any other questions at this point. I'll bring it back to the board after. All right, I open it up to public comment for this. Does anybody want to speak? So a total of 5 minutes per individual, so.
I'm David Geyer. I live at 400 McEwen Drive. My property, the southeast corner of my property is right at that curve where the road comes in by the pumping station. I did see, am I correct, that you've redesigned the road so it doesn't go across my property, which I appreciate. Is there supposed to be a buffer between my property and a private road? I don't know the town code for that.
I don't know the answer to that. We can look that up.
So if the snow plow is plowing, it would plow onto my property, not that I use that as my driveway, but it is literally going onto my property. So I don't know if that's again, can be considered further redesign to push that road further away from the southeast corner of our property.
You're on the north side of McEwen, is that correct?
I am.
And I can't, unfortunately, I cannot see that screen, so.
Yeah, so where the road curves in, I am right along that property line there. Is there somewhere I can point? So yes, this is, my property line is here and here. So this is.
Okay, that's your spot there. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So I'm not sure if there's a way to redesign that. Also, I'm not excited about the hook of the road coming into McEwen, concerned about cars just whipping around that corner and not slowing down or stopping, and that does go against the Department of Transportation recommendations for roads coming in perpendicular to another road. So I'm not excited about that corner and that curve. I'm also a little concerned about the fact that we're only using 32% of this property and 4.2 acres, and we're cramming 56 units onto that, or 13.4 units per acre. I understand why they're doing that, but I think that's skirting the way we're trying to get around medium high-res property, so that we are putting a lot of units in a very small place on that property. It does, and I don't see a community need or a hardship by the developer need to do that, other than they want more units on that property. There are ways, in my opinion, they could redesign this property. It may be a few fewer units, not opposed to the development. I'm opposed to doing things that are against the code. We really, in my opinion, should be following the code as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Charlie. I was here previously. I'm at 440 McEwen. First off, this new design is better. I will admit that. We're still concerned with the same questions you have in terms of the buffer, right? If it's not going to be as big as it should be or as long as it should be more significant. There's no other MHR in the town of Webster that will have this small of a buffer between an R3 in our case or an MHR district. Almost all of them have significant, whether it's vegetation, trees, shrubs, things that are a lot bigger than what they actually propose right now. So if we're asking for a variance, or if they're asking for a variance in that buffer, I'm asking the town to consider making that buffer a lot more significant than what they're currently proposing. I also kind of went down the black hole in terms of cluster development. I kind of understand the need to develop these properties in the most suitable part of the property. What I don't understand, and I don't know if you can answer this, is very similar to what Dave was saying earlier, and how the calculation in terms of the area relative to the number of dwellings that's allowed in a cluster development. I was trying to do the math myself. Couldn't quite figure it out. I don't know if that's something you can answer right here today, but it's definitely something I want you all to consider.
I do appreciate the question. The calculation is based off the total size of the lot. So there are two lots being combined, which totals, I believe, Mr. Nadler, was it 13 acres?
12 and a half, 13.
12 and a half, 13 acres. So when calculating it, you look at the total size of the lot.
Okay.
But your questions would be great for the planning board. They could certainly speak to any concerns you might have about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just note, this is not a cluster development. It's MHR.
Right. Thank you. Anybody else, other comments from the public? No? Okay. I'll turn it back over to the board. Any other questions from the board at this point?
I'm sure it's more the purview of the planning board, but because it is a district buffer, I think there should be more plan material to buffer. Not that the proposed buildings are not going to be really, really attractive. I believe that. But it is, as a district buffer, I think, especially since you're doing it in the right-of-way and not on the property itself, and you basically have a parallel road going there, I think it would make a much better plan if there was some more plan material in there, not just necessarily trees, but a mixture of both size and types, deciduous and evergreen, and along with shrubs and trees as well. But once again, I don't know if that's more of a planning board thing, but I believe it goes to the character, which then brings it back to us for saying that, but that's just my opinion.
I agree with you. Taking a step further, the buffers were meant to protect any residences outside of that project limit. The project limit, unfortunately, is the property line, which is the right of way to McEwen. I personally think there should be more green space from that project limit to the project itself. This way it protects the single-family homes on McEwen and also protects the townhouses within the complex.
I agree, but since it is, that green space is shortened, especially with the parallel road, I'd like to see that small little area of right-of-way really almost overplanted to make up for that lack of distance.
Yeah, well, you know, as it stands right now, that driveway, it's at a zero buffer.
Right.
Right.
So, if I may, Chris DiMarzo just came up to me during the public hearing portion and said, we're absolutely going to put pine trees or, evergreen trees in there. We can absolutely beef that buffer up, including in the lawn between the driveways, if that's what the planning board or this board would like. Usually the way we select is through the planning board process with input from our neighbors. They're the ones who are going to wind up looking at it. But we can absolutely beef that up. I think we probably were going to anyway.
With the new design, the unit that is on McEwen, what was the purpose for its distance off of the property line versus moving it further south? I think it's south.
I think elimination of unnecessary pavement is a large part of that. We can have 100-foot long driveways.
I'm not talking about 100, but to everybody's comments here, right? I mean, the drive road, I'm going to call it the one that is parallel to the property line. If we were to take that building and move it back 15 feet from, right? I mean, you're adding 15 feet of a perpendicular driveway. That's what you're adding, right? We're not talking about adding significant to all the other properties or whatnot. You are getting closer to the bioretention pond. You are making the fields in the backside smaller, right? Yeah, in that a little bit smaller. Again, I don't know what the distances are, but if it was to move back 15 feet, that gives the ability to provide more buffer, staggered buffer versus, right? I mean, you have a row of trees that are next to each other. You end up, a single row of trees doesn't really provide a great deal of buffer, but if you're able to provide a staggered row of trees, it provides a much better level of buffering.
Well, plus moving it would move in that, what do you want to call the access road or the roadway, gets it out of the easement.
Correct.
That's around there too, which, once again, if it gets plowed up, they could tear it up and say, hey, have fun putting your driveway back in.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something that you guys would consider?
Well, so I think it eats up usable green space to add, not unnecessary, but irrelevant green space. You're not going to be able to perceive a difference. It's important to remember, Josh, could you put up the overhead, the aerial with the arrows on it? It's important to remember that our buffer, where we're measuring from, is our property line. And then what's after that is some space between our property line and McEwen Drive. And then there's McEwen Drive. And then there's a bunch of front yards. And then 160 feet away are single-family residential houses. Generally, the residential district buffer requirement is when you're putting an apartment building in the backyard of single-family residential.
Yeah,
The
I mean-
backyard is where the activity of a home is focused, not the front yard. So putting an apartment complex, even right on the border, impacts that home. We've got 160 feet to what's people's garages, and then a little bit more to where their foyers and living rooms and dining rooms usually are in a single-family home. But so we're not, you know, I don't think there's a ton of space to add, to move that building back.
Mr. Nadler, the planning board asked you to incorporate that community center in those courts? Was that,
Yeah, that's
that was a
absolutely
request
correct.
from that board?
Yeah, and that's fundamental to the plan. We have an existing complex here. I think it'll really make this a great project.
The building that enters McEwen Drive, as far as access, what if you flip that and utilize the access point to the clubhouse for that building?
So, you know, and we looked at that. That was my initial idea, but I'm a lawyer, not an engineer. It does not work that way. The project isn't feasible that way.
Why?
There's
And-
about 9 feet of elevation change.
It's the grading, that's where
Yeah,
that
this
retaining
building
wall
is
back
up
there?
9 feet higher than the clubhouse area.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you have, you know, people on McEwen looking at our backyards, not the front of a house like a residential street is, you know, the design should be.
Actually, townhouse really doesn't have a backyard, if you know what I mean. They're really
Yeah,
not
that's a little bit-
utilized like a single family's backyard.
Okay.
Any other comments? I'm gonna go back to my question before, because I didn't hear an answer to it. Would you consider, or is there an ability to slide the building facing McEwen back a number of feet? You know, I'm looking at, I see we're about 15 feet from the retaining wall. The retaining wall is about 8 feet from the corner of the pickleball court. You know, so I don't know, we're 25 feet plus or minus from the corner of the pickleball fencing is what I'm reading there.
I don't think that's feasible. I mean, we could do a foot or two with, I mean, there is a backyard to these townhouses.
Yep.
And, you know, you don't want to destroy that. You don't want to impede on the sport court or the clubhouse. And I don't think we can go back a foot or two, but I don't think it'll be perceptible.
I could also probably shift the, that parallel driveway, I could shift that a few feet too. So we could probably get to a 5 foot, you know, moving the building a couple feet, shifting the driveway a few feet, get at least 5 more feet there.
Just my thoughts, that would be helpful, because understanding that that parallel driveway was a request by the town, but that does put you at technically 0 foot as a buffer, which I understand that there's green space on the other property that can be vegetated to block it a little bit, but I think if you could make it a little bit deeper, it's still going to be a significant change from what's there now, but it will be a little less harsh with more plantings and more depth of plantings.
Okay.
Well, I think either way, they're planting in the right of way. Even if they remove it out, because
Right.
you're not gonna take that extra couple feet if they move
They would need to do both.
right.
Right.
They would need to do both.
We can absolutely do that.
Well, and maybe that helps get, no, never mind. That helps get you out of the easement a little bit as well.
Well, for the driveway, absolutely,
For the
but
driveway.
I think for the plant material, you wouldn't want to, it's been my experience that I generally won't specify anything in an easement because tree roots tend to do what they
What they do.
Wanna
do,
Yeah.
and
Well, and the
they
salt's
can be
gonna-
detrimental to any type of utility.
Yep. Okay. Any other comments from the board?
Does anyone have any concerns with the front setback at 18 feet?
It's within the complex, I really don't care.
No, well, and it's,
To be honest with you, it's a private road.
there's more townhomes beyond this parcel
That's
that
right.
is very similar to that.
Yep.
It's-
Yes, and it's, like I say, it's a private
Yeah.
road. The buffer concerns me. I don't want to establish a precedent. People say you don't establish a precedent, each application stands on their own merit. But it concerns me, it could establish precedent. I mean, initially, this third phase came in, and I believe it was like 3 acres or 2.5
Mhm.
acres. So they combined lots to get around the density issue. God bless you. But what's to prevent them from splitting that land off again? That concerns me also.
Well, the planning board,
The planning board can impose a condition to prevent any
Well,
future.
I would think that the zoning board could also.
I would at least think the zoning board would make that recommendation. Do you have, I'm assuming that this will be the end of the development for this property, and even though there's acreage that's undeveloped at this point in time as part of this 12-acre parcel, you're not planning any additional development on that acreage?
That's absolutely correct. We're not, this is the end of the development. This is the end of the plan from the 1980s, and this is the end of the owner's plan on development.
And the plan is to then not subdivide the property and then sell off the property for another developer to come in. This is the parcel.
Absolutely, that is not our intent. The open space sloping down to the bay is integral to not only this project, but our current 62 townhouses that we rent. It would be a devastating blow to lose that. We also couldn't subdivide it below 5 acres because we would then be out of compliance with town code and would need a variance. So we could, but we'd need the planning board and the zoning board to approve it again, and that's not in the plan.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Nadler, you said that in regards to the buffer, the distance from the road to those other single-family residences, what's that distance there?
The distance from our building to the closest McEwen house is 153 feet.
Okay.
And again, there's houses in phases 1 and 2 that are 60 feet away between buildings.
All right. There's no other questions or comments from the board. Post the vote on seeker. I'd like to make a motion for a type 2 action under seeker pursuant to NYCR section 617.5 of the Environmental Code.
second,
Okay, Mr. Short,
Aye?
Mr. Wagner.
Aye.
Mr. Hausen,
Aye.
Mr. Santola,
aye,
Mrs. Vola.
Aye.
All right. With that, walk through the findings of the project. If anybody wants to do it? No? All right, this request is not out of character in the neighborhood. The applicant has really made an effort from the initial submission to the current submission to ensure that the project is within the character of the neighborhood itself, both within the current property as well as adjacent properties there. There will not be a detriment created to the nearby properties. At the end of the day, the applicant has agreed to provide additional 5-foot setback, more than what was previously proposed, as well as buffer plantings to minimize and eliminate any visual impact to any of the nearby properties. The benefit is not achievable through any other methods due to the slope of the property all the way down to the bay, as well as the immediate area. The benefit is not achievable by any other methods. This is a large project. It is a substantial project for the area. And there are no adverse physical or environmental impacts to the site or the neighborhood that it's within, especially with the buffers being put in place and the 151.8 for the document that I have, adding 5 feet to that, 156.8 feet from nearby structures themselves. Difficulty was not self-created. This is the property, that is the natural slopes that are there. And this is a desirable change to the area from the fields that are there. With that, I'd like to make a motion to provide a variance to the Waterview Apartments Phase 3, located at northwest corner of Willow Point Way and Nautical Mile Drive. Applicant Legacy Development is requesting area variance to allow a front setback of 18.7 feet, where code requires 75 feet, and a district buffer area of
Can we vote on each one of those separately?
yeah,
I would prefer that.
okay, yeah.
So do I have to deal with the
How do I-
setback?
Do I have to make motion separately then on each one of
Yeah,
these,
you make
right?
a motion for
Okay.
the front
So-
setback.
So second, I'll second the front setback.
Okay.
And that's the front setback to Maritime Drive.
Correct.
Is there a building number on that?
No, it would just be the one facing Maritime or facing Methuen.
This one here, we were talking about. Yeah,
So we're doing a front
Setback
setback
variance.
first of 18 point,
what was it, 18.6?
18.7.
18.7.
18.7.
okay, so
18.7.
who seconded?
Corinne
Corinne.
seconded.
Okay. So Mr. Short,
Aye.
Mrs. Volo,
Aye.
Mr. Septola,
Aye.
Mr. Hauser,
Aye.
Mr. Wagner.
Aye.
Okay, you have your 18-foot front setback.
Thank you.
For the second one, make a motion for a district buffer area less than what is required. District area buffer would be 30, 40, 43 feet, where code requires 100 feet.
Is that inclusive of the additional 5?
That is inclusive of the additional 5 feet.
So one, just correction, the one facing Methuen is moving down, but the one that's kind of perpendicular on the left side of the screen,
Is not changing.
that one's not changing, that one's 38.
That one's 30, correct.
So can we do a dual buffer, so to the,
You guys made this real
Western
complicated
the
for us.
westmost 10-unit building have a buffer of the 38.5 feet, and the building facing McEwen have a 5-foot buffer to that
Drive.
connected drive.
Can I recommend that you grant the variance of 38-foot buffer setback with conditions that the building move? I think that would comply with public notices, with condition that we move the building back.
But,
As it sits right now, that access driveways that there's zero buffer. So removing the access driveway 5 feet?
Because I'm assuming the drive, that everything with that, in that building will shift south 5 feet, so the building and the access road.
No, it was, the building was shifting 2 feet and the driveway was shifting 3 feet. So the driveway
Okay.
will shift 5, but the building's only shifting 2.
So back to what, I think what Corinne was saying earlier, and I think I got you, is that the westernmost building have a buffer of 38 feet.
Right.
The building facing McEwen,
Would be 43 feet.
no,
To the
it would be
building.
5 feet to the drive road,
Yes.
is what it ends up being.
Can you push it back 5 feet?
Yeah.
I thought we were gonna do 3 on the driveway.
No, but when you move the building to, it makes the driveway go
Right, yeah,
to
right.
total 5, yeah.
And I can do a condition of moving, I think you said moving the building 2 feet,
Yeah.
moving the driveway 3 feet.
Well, the driveway would move 5 because of.
Right.
Correct, yeah, sorry, yes. But it'd be 3 feet closer to the
Well, and,
building.
Yes.
yeah,
closer
and
to the
that
building,
building
yes.
is still going to be further from McEwen than the westward
Yes,
10-unit building.
yes.
So,
It'd be
And
40
can
feet,
we,
so it'd be a 5 foot.
Also add condition of additional landscaping or landscape materials of both size and,
Yeah, so,
okay,
Yep.
sorry, I'm just,
Got it.
Because it's,
no, I
everyone's
just,
talking
I don't
and
wanna
there's
miss
no
it.
clear direction.
Okay, I'm gonna try this again. So, I make a motion for the westernmost 10-unit townhome to have a
38.
single-family district buffer variance of 38 feet from the property line. And the 10-unit building facing McEwen to have a 5-foot buffer to the drive and to maintain a 43.8 feet buffer or distance to the property line.
Yes.
Yes.
second,
Nailed it.
With the conditions of buffer landscaping to be provided both in the buffer zone on your property, as well as work with the town to provide buffering in the town property as well. Now, take the second.
Mr. Short,
Aye.
Mr. Santola,
aye,
Mrs. Vola,
aye.
Mr. Hauser,
Nay.
Mr. Leitner.
Aye.
All that being said, you now have 2 variances, one for the front setback and one for the buffer setback, with the conditions of additional buffer vegetation, as well as moving the building back 2 feet and moving the horizontal or the drive road back 5 feet. You have 1 year for the project. You need all other permits and approvals from the planning board, et cetera.
I'd like to thank you all very much for your thoughtful consideration. We appreciate it. We appreciate the feedback we got over the summer from you. Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank you.
Josh, thank you.
All right, please hold the last one sheet. All right, you ready for the next one?
No, I am a complete mess right now.
We have to consolidate papers.
Yeah.
A bigger desk.
Okay.
you're an engineer's engineer,
Not lately, I'm a retired engineer.
engineer, what's an engineer? Oh, an engineer.
All right, now
Yeah, I'm ready.
Sharon Court.
What's that? That's progress.
All right, located at 1093 Sharon Court, applicant Dale Weiss is requesting an area variance to allow for the construction of a ready-made garage to be placed closer to the front property line than the rear line of the main building on a .55 acre parcel having SBL number 079.18-1-40, located in an R3 single-family residential district under sections 350-12 and 350-36 of the Code of the Town of Webster. Hi. Hi.
State your name and, give us a
Dale
rundown of the
Weiss.
project.
1093 Sharon Court.
Okay,
Lisa Weiss, 1093 Sharon Court.
all right. Feel free to present your project.
Oh, sorry. Okay, he wants you to present the project. We did it last time. We were just here for the second variance
Yeah,
tonight, so.
the,
But we can go over it again.
They did do that in
Yes.
their address, yep.
the applicant was here at the October meeting for a side setback, but it wasn't noticed for the building being
In front.
in front of the rear line of the house.
That's correct.
So we just needed to re-advertise it so that that variance could be correct.
I'm gonna ask a question. The property lot size, based on the information I have, is 21,780 square feet. Based on the deck, pool, house, current shed, and then the new structure, we are going to, I believe we're going to exceed 20% of lot coverage as well.
I haven't verified that, but that would mean we'd have to re-advertise it.
I know, and I'm sorry to do that. As I was calculating the numbers at 4 o'clock today, that's when I noticed it.
Can you explain that, please?
So the town code requires, within, I think there's an R3 district, it's a 20%, I believe, is what I recall, maximum lot coverage. So if you have, I think you're a half acre plot of land, that's 21,780 square feet. 20% of that is 4,000 and change. That's calculated based on structures on the property, which includes the deck, deck wraparound porch, the pool, the house, the shed, and then the new structure as well, would be the ones that would come up. And when I did my math, and I don't know what the actual property size is, if it's truly a straight half acre, or if it's 0.6 of an acre, or if it's 0.4 of an acre.
I think it's 0.58, something like that.
So I didn't have all the figures, I was over by about 700 square feet when I was doing my quick calculations.
And if the,
It would be another variance that you would also need on top of the side variance, the front variance, and then lot size variance as well.
if
Sorry,
we lost the
Josh.
other shed, would that make a difference? If we removed?
It would, I couldn't, again, did I bring my calculations with me? I think the shed was about 110 square feet, plus or minus. I wasn't out on your property with a tape measure, so I was doing the best I could with the information I had. The house, pool, and deck I have at about 4,700 square feet. And then the new structure itself, you had the size on here, it was like 14 by 20 or something like that. Yeah, that was another several hundred square feet. Allowable, based on what I was calculating, was 4,356, and the house and pool without the shed was already at 4,700.
Okay.
So, again, without me having actual numbers, I apologize.
0.5.
What's that?
The lot is 0.55 acres.
Lot is .55. That in of itself helps. Sorry, I'm trying to do some quick calculations. So that puts you about 4,800 square feet, which would be the house, the pool, and the shed. You lose the shed, yeah, you'd be able to put another 100 square feet shed back up, but you'd still be at the max. Again, my calculations were based off of Google Earth measurements. They were not me physically out there measuring it, so.
Okay, so what do we need to do?
Come back next month.
Come back again? Come back, do we have to fill out another variance
No.
form, or?
No, we'll take care of that. We'll calculate the actual dimensions, and then we'll advertise this along with what you were here tonight for.
Okay, okay.
So you're saying that the structure we want to put on adds too much to the total for the lot size? Is that, because I'm
Correct.
having trouble hearing you, I'm sorry, but.
Sorry, yeah, so the total, based on the zoning code, there's a maximum of 20% of coverage on a lot, and that is of structure. So anything that you build on your lot cannot exceed 20% of the total lot size. Your lot is 0.55 acres, or 23,958 square feet is what your lot is. So 20% of that would be 4,791 square feet of built structures. That's not including the driveway or any of that, but that is the house, the deck, the pool, the shed, and then any new structures that are built.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
I understand.
Essentially, what you have, your current lot coverage is just about at the maximum you're allowed.
Okay,
So, I'm not trying to speak for the chairman, but like you said, you could get rid of the existing shed and, tell us you get rid of the existing shed, or just come back, unfortunately, next month. And it is unfortunate that you have to do it that way, but it has to be advertised, even though I'm sure everyone that's here tonight to speak against it will be back next month. But, unfortunately, that's the way it goes.
okay. And what's the date in December?
13th,
Christmas?
I think. It'll be a good Christmas present, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's the 13th.
It would be the 10th,
Is it the 10th?
Tuesday the 10th.
Tuesday the 10th, okay. And we, on our end, we don't have to do anything. This is all going to be calculated and put in the paper, and then we'll come back again and see if we can get the variance.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, 3 variances, sounds like. 3 variances.
Correct.
You've
Okay.
already received one though, so
Okay.
2 more to go.
Okay, sounds good.
Do,
All right.
I mean, do we want to hold off on tonight's until next month, or?
It's up to you guys.
I'm fine. You want to do it all together as one?
Yeah, we can.
Let's
Might
just do
as-
that.
Unless you want to go home with something tonight.
It's fine.
Let's just hold off until,
Yeah, this way it's at one location.
No, I agree, but
It's all in one.
Yep.
document.
table until 12:10.
Does somebody need to make a motion?
I make a motion to table 1093 Sharon Court, Webster, New York, to the 12:10 meeting.
second,
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. Thank you, sorry.
Thank you. No, it's okay. Gotcha.
Third time's the charm.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
All right, moving on to our scheduled matters for this evening.
Whiting Road, single-family residence located at 430 Whiting Road. Applicant Austin Goodwin is requesting an area variance to allow a front setback of 30 feet where a minimum required is 75 feet, associated with the construction of a 2,261 square foot single-family residence on a 3-acre parcel having SBL number 049.03-1-34.2, located in an LL large lot single-family residential district under section 350-13 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
State your name, address, and feel free to give us a rundown on your project.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Austin Goodwin. Like you said, I am the owner at 430 Whiting Road, along with my fiancee Caroline. The reason we're here tonight is for, as you already stated, to request a front setback variance smaller than the one applicable to town code. Looking up on the screen, you can see that this is a 3-acre flag lot along Whiting Road, and town code specifies that your front setback for a flag lot is not typical of a normal property where it comes off of the right-of-way. It comes off of the rear lot line of the property in front of you. So off of the property in front of me being 446 Whiting, which is Mr. Schneider, who is also here with me tonight, the front setback starts from his rear property line. So just to make it clear that when I'm talking about a 30-foot front setback, I'm not talking about a 30-foot front setback from Whiting Road. I'm talking about a 700-plus foot setback from Whiting Road. The reason that I'm asking for this is because of the natural topography of the property itself. Things that I stated in the statement of difficulty. Number one being that this is not a self-created hardship. The natural topography, Josh, if you don't mind, keep going, right there. So the natural topography of this parcel is a central valley running right through the middle, and then just to the right side of that, another steep hill with a peak. Once you go down the backside of that hill, the far edge of this property is Webster Park. So this property is not a flat lot that is easy to build upon. In a sense, the only real logical place that I can place a single-family residence is where you see on here, where what it will be is the front of the house will be at the top of the valley where it's flat, and the house will be a single-story residence with a walkout basement that goes down the hill. And that would allow me to, based on where it is, be a few feet up from the low point of the valley where when we get freeze thaw and all the snow starts melting, you don't want your house in that. And it also, the reason it has to be pushed a little bit farther forward like that is the leach field that you see on the right side of the house. So Whiting Road doesn't have all the utilities that a typical road does. There's about a 1,250 foot gap on both sides of the road where there is no water service and there is no sanitary sewer. So the house is actually 410, just to the north side of this, is the last house that has water service off Whiting Road, which means I can either pay the Monroe County Water Authority tens upon tens of thousands of dollars to extend the main, or I can go on a well, like most people in this area have. In order to do that, there is certain health code requirements that separate the well from the leach field. So on the left side of the house, I know you probably can't see it, but there's a little circle right there. That's where I'm proposing to put the well, at the top side of the hill, upstream from the leach field. That's a health code requirement. I can't change that, nor would I want to. I don't want my well downstream of my leach field. The leach field itself also can't be built in the valley because of during the spring, when that becomes inundated from snowmelt, now it's inundated and I'm gonna back up my plumbing and that's gonna cause a whole nother mess of problems. So the leach field has to be built as a tiered system on the side of the hill. That leach field has separation requirements from property lines, and that's why there's an arrow right there on the north tippy corner of the leach field. Essentially, that leach field is as far to the right and as close to that little valley that I can possibly put it. It is also as close to the house as I can put it because health code requires me to have the septic tank and the leach fields a certain distance from the house. In order to build this house, that means that the house has to move closer to the back rear lot line of Mr. Schneider's property, and that's why I'm asking for the 30-foot versus the 75. Now, in terms of all the other questions for statement of difficulty, essential character, would this affect the character of the area? No. It's a very sparse, single-family residential street where all the lots are at least 3 acres, all covered in vast, mature vegetation. I do not plan to change that in any way. In fact, actually, by having the house closer up, I'm as far as I can possibly go to stay away from Webster Park. So instead of having the house way in the back corner by the trail, I'm trying to stay away from it. I want people to enjoy that, and I also want to have my privacy from the park. In terms of no other remedy, without mass grading this 3-acre site and effectively filling in that valley and clear cutting all the trees on the property to get that net cut fill, there's no other way for me to do it without putting the house where it is, where the front of the house is at the top of the hill, build it to be a single-story ranch, and have it be a walkout basement versus a 2-story house like many others in the area. Couple reasons why I want that. I'd like to grow old in this house. I don't want to have stairs in 40 years. And another sense is because of the property being on a hill, the only way essentially to do it is to be a walkout basement style house. In terms of significance to neighbors, the only neighbor that would be affected by granting this variance is Mr. Schneider, and that's why I brought him here today. Because this is a one-dimensional movement, the house is not getting any closer to the properties to the north than is already allowed. It's not getting any closer to the property to the south or the east, which is Webster Park. The only person who is affected by this would be Mr. Schneider's property, and the closest distance between this house and his is over 500 feet. The nearest neighbor, in terms of even just distance to this house, whether this was granted or not, is over 300 feet to the north, with vast mature vegetation between this house and all of the neighbors. So during the middle of summer, no one can see each other anyway. Regardless if this house is here or back, no one is going to see it. Otherwise, this is probably the smallest presentation I've ever done for a project since it's a single-family house. So I'm here for any questions you have.
Thank you. That was helpful. My one question to you is, I got why you situated it in its current location. I took a quick sketch, I rotated it 30 degrees, and I was able to pick up an additional 25 feet, keeping the house in the same location. Is that something that you are willing to consider, as rotating the design you have to move the garage? Ultimately, what it does is it pulls the garage back further away from the property line.
So just to make sure that everybody understands, what you're saying is take that house as is. Is there a TV everyone can see, or do you have it in
Rotate it
front of you?
counterclockwise by
Okay.
about, I don't know, is it 25?
So you would be essentially asking that what happens instead is that the house would get turned counterclockwise like this.
Correct.
So the reason I did not do that is because of the steep grade change that drops off into that valley. If you were to turn the house, yes, the main portion of the house is still on the flat side of the hill, but what you've now done is that the back side of the basement, the walkout portion, is now on the portion of the hill where it's coming down. It's not an open level ground in the back. You have essentially one corner of the house at the bottom, but the entire house is askew from the hill so that you don't have anything out back. I can't put a patio out back for people to sit on. I can't put anything other than just having the land dive down to one corner of the house,
Well,
and then I have nothing usable.
You would have the whole, again, with the whole flat side adjacent to the garage, that whole face would be facing downhill.
Yes,
Similar to,
that
right?
part.
So-
Yes, it would. The second reason that I didn't want to do that is because the more and more you turn this, that is more and more fill that has to be placed just to put the garage in. And with this house being a walkout basement, the only soil I'm going to get without mass grading more of the site, cutting down trees and getting that soil from somewhere, is by leaving it like this. The soil that gets dug out for the basement has to go where the garage currently is in order to build a pad to put the garage in. So if you turn that farther and farther, then the garage is farther and farther down the hill, And now that's significantly more and more material that I have to bring in or import or cut down trees in another part of the property to steal that soil in order to fill that pad area in order for me to put a 6 to 8 inch concrete pad in. So it's a much larger, I don't want to say significance, it's a much larger construction project in order to turn that and put more of the garage over an area that it would have to have multiple and multiple feet of additional fill placed underneath it. Which if this were a large development project, they're mass grading the entire site anyway. That's not a big deal. For a single family residence, the only soil I'm getting is what gets dug out for that basement. And there's not much that would allow me to build the pad under the garage as is, which already has a 4 foot to 5 foot grade change from front to back. If I turn it, I now have to fill in front of it and underneath it. And I'm not going to have enough soil to do that.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
I don't. I walked the property again today just to reaffirm for myself. I remember there being a ravine back there, but I did not remember how significant the ravine was on that lot, so.
From aerial or from contour lines, it doesn't look as bad as it is when you're standing there.
You're standing there going, oh yeah, I forgot about that, because that, so the flat area where you have the house is really the only logical location to put it on that parcel, with the least amount of damage to the
And with respect to
woods.
Mr. Short's comments, which might make it a little better from a design standpoint, I think from a practical standpoint, based on the existing conditions out there, I think that works. It's not a question of it not working, it's a question of a personal preference of, I think it might be better if you'd rotated it, but I don't think the necessary actions to rotate it is significant enough to request them to do that.
All right. I'll open it up to public comment. Anybody speak for or against?
Hi, I'm Eric Schneider. I reside at 446 Whiting Road with my wife Karen. And note that Catherine Kolsch is still coughing. But yeah, we are the only affected neighbor. In fact, we're the only neighbor. And we won't even be able to see this development unless we're standing behind our barn. It's just, even in the summer, you just won't see it at all. So it's not a problem there. I can tell you from having lived here for 30 years that that valley will become a quagmire in the spring. It simply can't be built on at that location, and the leach field does have to be up on the hillside itself in order to support that. And it does drop off quite quickly. There's a good 13-foot difference as it drops from the flat section down to the, well, what my wife and I call the meadow. So there's not a whole lot of space there. You pretty much have to have the house running parallel to the hill itself in order to have any sort of patio, walkout, basement, thing like that. And it's almost going to be at the level of the meadow floor by the time you get there. So there are a lot of constraints there. You would have to push it all the way across the meadow floor, and within, well, closer to Webster Park by 50 foot, you'd basically be staring at the people on the West Loop as they walk through in the summer. So not the best idea. So this is really the only feasible location of a house, given the constraints that you've got, and trying to keep it within a reasonable budget. So my wife Karen and I have discussed this, and I believe that Karen and Ms. Volo walked the property together along with the dog. Thanks for exercising him while I was at work. And basically, we're fully in agreement with the position of the house and the variance requested.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bring it back to the board. Any other comments from the board? Questions?
Have you done a perk test to ensure that the septic system is good where you have it?
Yes, that perk test was done, and that is why you see the amount of leach fields that are there.
Just making sure. Thank you.
Okay. All right. With that, I'd like to make a motion for a type 2 action under seeker pursuant to the NYCRR section 617.5 of the Environmental Code.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I can find my sheet.
I'll do fine,
Okay.
unless you want to.
No, go ahead.
The project doesn't result in the undesirable change in the essential character of the neighborhood, and there'll be no detriment to any adjacent properties if the variance is granted. The relief sought by the variance is not achievable by other feasible method due to the existing contours of both the valley and the flat area of the existing property. The variance is not substantial based on the amount of property and the proximity to adjacent neighbors. The variance will not have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. And it's not self-created because the flag lot has already been subdivided, and the topography and wooded areas were existing probably long before the flag lot was created.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion for the Whiting Road single-family residence located at 430 Whiting Road, requesting an area variance to allow a front setback of 30 feet. The minimum required is 75 feet, associated with the construction of a 2,261 square foot single-family residence on a 3-acre parcel having SBL 049.03-1-34.2, located in an LL large lot, single-family residential district under section 350-13 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Second.
Mr. Short,
Aye.
Mrs. Volo,
Aye.
Mr. Santola,
Aye.
Mr. Hauser,
Aye.
Mr. Wagner.
Aye.
You have your variance for the front setback. You have 1 year for the project. You must obtain all building codes, Department of Health codes for the septic, et cetera, before you can start the project.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Last scheduled matter. I'll read it. Meadow Ridge House Edition, located at 867 Meadow Ridge Lane. Applicant Chad Willardson is requesting an area variance to allow a rear setback of 38 feet, where the minimum required is 50 feet, associated with the construction of an addition on a 0.41 acre parcel having SBL 079.1-1-30, located in a R3 single-family residential district under section 350-12 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
How we doing?
Good.
Chad Willardson, project manager for Marshall Exteriors. I'm representing the homeowners, Kathy and Steve Buckner.
Okay.
We're looking to change the setback from 50 to 38. We had a permit for a covered structure already, and the homeowners asked to enclose it. We're not changing the footprint whatsoever. We're just looking to have the setback changed.
Are you enclosing just the addition portion?
Yes.
Or, so not the existing deck, that will remain?
The existing deck is staying the same.
Okay.
I don't have any questions.
No, based
I
on,
don't.
other, based on lot size and shape
Yeah.
of the lot, there's no other option?
No, and there's a car dealership behind it.
Yeah,
They're not gonna ever see it.
right. All right, I'll open up to the public if there is any more public here, which there is not. So, bring it back to the board one last time. Nobody had any comments before. I'm assuming nobody has any more comments. I'd like to make a motion for a type 2 action under seeker pursuant to NYCRR section 617.5 of the Environmental Code.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Somebody else want to do the findings? Still frazzled from the first two.
I recommend that the board grant area variances for Meadow Ridge House Addition located at 867 Meadow Ridge Lane to allow a rear setback of 38 feet where the minimum required is 50 feet associated with the construction of an addition on a 0.41 acre parcel having SBL number 079.19-1-30 located in R3 Single Family Residential District under section 350-12 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Second. Do we want to do findings before we vote?
Yes.
Do you want me to do
Want me
that? It's
to do
okay,
it?
I can do it.
I'll do it.
Either way.
Fine. There are no, hang on, I need the sheet to do it in order. I apologize.
That's okay.
I want to make sure I do it correctly. Granted variance will not change the essential character of the neighborhood, and it will provide no detriment to nearby properties. The benefit sought by the applicant is minimal, and there are no other remedies based on the size and the configuration of the lot. The requested area variance is not substantial. The proposed variance will not have an adverse effect on the physical and environmental conditions of the general area. And the request is not self-created in that the lot size with the current house and deck are there, and that's the really only spot to put an addition.
So,
Now,
second? Do we have a second?
Mr. Santola,
Aye.
Mrs. Rolo,
Aye.
Mr. Hauser,
Aye.
Mr. Wagner,
Aye.
Mr. Short.
Aye. You have your variance. You have to make sure you have all other permits required to be able to complete the project. You have 1 year to complete the project.
All right, thank you.
Have a great night.
You too.
We have 2 administrative matters.
We do. Please hold.
Please
They're
hold.
here somewhere.
She's getting punchy.
All right, if everyone is in agreement and has reviewed them, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the September 10th zoning board of appeals meeting.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And yes, I have enough to vote. Okay, and then lastly, if I can get there, I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the October 8th zoning board of appeals meeting.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Perfect. Thank you. All
With
right,
that,
we are caught up with our administrative matters.
Make a motion to close today's zoning board meeting.
Second.
Second.
All right. Thank you, everybody.